Well, hello there. Thank you for joining me for this week's edition of Telile 24/7. I'm your host, Adam Cook. Later on in the program, you'll hear from Richmond Warden Amanda Mombourquette about a variety of recent issues from the Richmond Municipal Council table. And we'll close with our regular segment, The Fast Five, this time featuring Inverness County CAO Keith MacDonald. But we begin with our continuing coverage of the installation of a new emergency room model at the Strait-Richmond Hospital in Evanston. Last week at Richmond Municipal Council, roughly a week and a half after the new model took place, 3 representatives from the Nova Scotia Health Authority's Eastern Zone took part in the meeting via Zoom to explain the situation that led to the new ER model being installed and what we can expect in terms of healthcare professional recruitment and general healthcare management at the Strait-Richmond in the days and weeks to come. In the interest of serving our viewers, we've decided to run that entire presentation for you on this week's edition of Telile 24/7. You'll also hear responses and questions from municipal councillors at last week's meeting, and we'll finish up with some commentary that we recorded after the meeting with Richmond Warden Amanda Mombourquette. She kicks off our special coverage of the Strait-Richmond situation. Here, in its entirety, is that presentation to Richmond Municipal Council at the June 27th regular Municipal Council meeting.
This is, potentially major impact for our hospital going forward, and I'm sure we all have concerns about the ongoing operations there. So welcome to the folks from Nova Scotia Health.
My name's Brett Figgle. I'm the Vice President of Operations for Eastern Zone. I live in North Sydney. My office is based out of Sydney, and I'll allow my colleagues to introduce themselves. So, Dr. Brian?
My name's Don Brian. I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I'm also the Medical Executive Director for Eastern Zone, that's including Cape Breton, Guysborough, and Antigonish. I've been living in Sydney for the past 22 years, and I've been practicing for that time, and I've got some close contacts with Strait-Richmond Hospital. I was running regular clinics from the hospital up till about 5 or 6 years ago, and certainly have close contact with a lot of physicians there, a lot of the people in the community. Thanks.
My name's Andrew Hayton. I'm the newly appointed Director of Intermediate Rural Health, so just filling in for Angela MacArthur, who was in the position up until last week. The last 2.5 years, I've been the Director of COVID Response for the Eastern Zone of Nova Scotia Health. I live in Inverness, and my office is currently located at St. Martha's. We have the emergency department. We have Dr. Hansel, who does generally 48 hours at a time, and the facility, the ER, is open when he has availability. And then there's inpatient unit at the site, as most of you would know. We have 3 hospitals there: Dr. Roche, Dr. Boudreau, Dr. Collins, and we've been recently aware that Dr. Plutas and Katie's taking a leave in July. And however, he will continue to cover inpatients. When we're looking at the staffing on the slide here, you can see that there's 22 registered nurse positions. That's for both the emergency department and the inpatient unit combined. And of those 22 positions, there's 11.5 vacancies. And we have 1 new hire pending. The licensed practical nurse LPNs, there's 12.9 positions, and 5 of those are vacant. And we have 2 new hires pending in that provider group. We have continuing care assistants, 6 positions, 2 vacant. We have 2 new hires coming into play. We have medical lab technician, 1 position at the site that is filled. We also have medical lab assistants. There's 3 positions, 2 vacancies. Just a word of note, we also have our nursing providers. Some of them are cross-trained in lab services and are able to do point-of-care testing and lab trials as well. And that happens in some of our rural sites in Eastern Zone and other zones across Nova Scotia. We have diagnostic imaging. There's 4 positions, and they're filled. One recent addition, and that was to expand weekend service. What was happening was we were having enough volume and callback for three positions, and sometimes that was creating some work-life balance. So we figured that we can add the position in and use the overtime spend that we were using to create that position, and so I think it's a lot of addition to the site. And then if you look at some of our other recruitment, we have ongoing recruitment for ED positions. Obviously, Dr. Hansel is able to do so much, and so we're looking to recruit to assist him in covering that service. We have our ongoing recruitment for registered nurse vacancies. We use maximum incentives for this site in the Strait. So that is a combination of $5,000 per year, up to 3 years, with relocation allowance as well. So that's total $15,000 for 3-year return service position, and that was based on feedback from the staff. We have many junior nurses, both in registered nurses and licensed practical nurses, and they're seeking that oversight and support. And so we're hoping that with that can help people with their competencies, with their ability, and the level of care that's required in the emergency department and in medicine services and inpatient. So really trying to support the team there and build the team back up, and help with retention effort and supporting them based on some staff interviews with their HR team and interprofessional practice team. We've also recently introduced some advanced care paramedics. They're hired as casuals, and that's to help support the emergency department when it's open, and offset some registered nurses workforce if necessary, but it's more to be complementary than to be replacing. And then we also have the continuing care assistants. There's hired 2 full-time and they're permanent positions, and we also have 2 temporary positions that are currently posted. And then since the pandemic, we created an additional classification of health provider, and it's health services support aid. And that was initially called an emergency support aid, but we've since modified the classification, and 1 hired to date and 2nd pending. So they're, again, trying to help support the registered regulatory staff so that they can focus on their work, and then those other health providers can come in and support the team. If you want to go to the next slide there, Andrew. Thanks. So just slide 3 here, some successes that we've had and some challenges. So recently, the renovation of the emergency department and ambulatory care, and that's been with significant support from the community and the foundation, and that's due to the grand opening this fall. So that renovation is really to help with streamlining the flow of the department. It was a bit fragmented in the past, so really to sort of provide that better work environment and have more functional for care delivery. But it was a significant investment from the foundation and the donors and the community, and thank you. And the government leaned in with the remainder. It has been challenging with the pandemic and supply chain. Those sorts of things have impacted us significantly, and we're happy that the work is starting to be finalized and look forward to the grand opening. Also, in addition to that renovation, there's overhauled air handling system for the facility, and replaced increased hot water capacity, for example. So again, trying to invest a bit more in updating the building so that it's up to standards by way of infrastructure. Another investment we made in the last few years, and again, some learnings from the pandemic, and so mental health virtual assessments for urgent care. And that's really intended to ensure that care can happen as close to one's community versus everyone having to travel into St. Martha's and Inverness or Sydney. So we've had some success with that. And again, we'll be looking to build on that. I think we called it a pilot, but we're having a lot of positive feedback and continuing to roll it out across the zone and across other zones. And I think the other important note to make is we've increased in pharmacy support recently, and that's really, again, to sort of offload those non-nursing duties that the nurses were having to do and try to ensure that we have the right providers in the right job. So I think that's going to be a welcome addition. And in addition to that, security, so some additional coverage based on some staff feedback, and ensuring that they feel safer and that they feel supported. As I mentioned, the foundation is a critical partner here in this community, and the donors, of course. And then most recently, within the last year plus, more collaboration with the Cape Red Source Recruiting health partnership team there. So we're hoping to really do more work with those team members and see if we can come up with and generate some new ideas for recruitment in the area, which we know is so challenging and based on the review, I'm sure you would agree. So other than recruitment challenges and retention challenges, access is one of the things that we're really focused on. We know how important this facility is to fewest community members, but it's a key piece of healthcare infrastructure for Cape Breton Island and Guysborough. And so our intention is and goal is to keep this facility and get it back to a 24/7 emergency department, and then hopefully recruit enough registered nurses to have the medicine services inpatient unit back to the full 20 beds versus the decrease that we've just had to make based on resources. So focusing on nursing turnover, and as I mentioned, we've had numerous meetings with staff trying to figure out and understand what the challenges they're seeing and where we can learn from them, and trying to take some ideas, and we've spoken to some of those. EHS is one of our partners. It's a partnership that we have by way of, we try to coordinate and facilitate pressures within the community, transport, offload delays, those sorts of things. We regularly meet with EHS, and we certainly acknowledge that it is a challenge. Their team provincially is undergoing the same amount of human resource challenges that we are as Nova Scotia Health, the long-term care sector. So, we're not alone, they're not alone, we're all trying to work together and ensure that we're making the best use of our resources that we have currently while we're trying to sort of build those teams back up. Lack of housing when it comes to recruitment and retention is a big challenge. Social employment, I'm sure many of these things that you would acknowledge as a community. And as I mentioned, long-term care, that sector's been hit even more greatly than we have in the way of staffing resources, and so they're trying to build up their workforce so that they can ensure that those patients are in the right setting at the right time, and work closely with their teams to try and ensure that we can move patients to their environment when we're able to do that.
So I'll just quickly review the physician physician update. Again, there's a number of well-known physicians in the area. There's four family physicians. I've mentioned Dr. Pluta, Dr. Collins, Dr. Deborah Marchand, and Dr. Toby Okeke. So Dr. Collins, if it's not completely formalized yet, it's going to maybe very soon. I think he'll be retiring. Dr. Pluta is just going to take a small leave over some limited weeks in the summer, which I think he deserves. So basically, they're not a full complement for family physicians, but there's ongoing recruitment at the Strait-Richmond Hospital in order to get back and achieve that goal of a 24 hour, 7-day a week emergency department. We need physicians that can work as a family doctor in the community, that can work as an emergency room physician. They can take care of the patients in the hospital, and then there's also some nursing homes as well. That there's the care provided nursing homes. So, it's kind of a specialized role that they have to play. It's in rural Nova Scotia. It's very common that multiple areas in the province have the same issue of recruiting these individuals to this type of hospital. It is an important hospital to us. It's strategically important. It's about an hour away from Sydney, Quebec, Inverness, and so it's really in a strategic place. There's some industry in the area. There's intersections of highways there, so a major highway. So, it's really important for us to get back to that 24/7 emergency department, a fully functional patient unit, because there's a large number of people to serve. So our recruitment is ongoing. We do have this practice ready assessment physician program, and Dr. Toby Okeke is a product of that, and I think we can all see what valuable member he is to the community. Basically, these are physicians that are trained outside of the country or international medical graduates. They get their licensing through Nova Scotia and Nova Scotia College of Physicians and Surgeons. And then they go through an assessment program for about 3 months. They work with 2 or 3 different family doctors, and they once it's felt that they're competent and they're satisfied that they can function in the community, then they go and work at designated areas. So in Nova Scotia right now, it's an ongoing program. We're just interviewing some individuals tonight for that program, actually. So we're hoping to be able to recruit to all the areas in Ayrshire, Lord Ways, and Port Hawkesbury in the not too distant future. At Ayrshire, again, there's the McNeils, the father and son team there. There is one vacancy. Again, they have a very busy practice there. Ongoing recruitment in that area. It's similar with Dr. McCormick in Lord Ways. There's an opening there. We're still looking for recruiting to that area. And again, we're hoping that over time the physicians in the practice rate assessment can help out. But we're also obviously recruiting, across the province, across the country, across the world for that matter, to get the right kind of positions that we want and that we need for this area.
Yeah, so we'll just talk about Strait-Richmond and the model of care that we implemented and a few next steps. So again, I just want to reiterate, you've heard it from Brad and Don. Our goal is to go back to a 24/7 emergency department with a full inpatient operational unit. So, again, this hospital is pivotal. It's located pivotally in the eastern zone and encompasses a big geographical area. So, as you're probably aware, our emergency department now has a new model that came out just a few weeks ago. So, as I mentioned, it's open a few days a week, and Dr. Hansfall is on site. And then every other weekend when he can as well. So our new model is based on a physician coverage. So when we do have physicians, we will be open. But also the new patient capacity process that's in place. So as you would have read, even when we are open now, so when we do have physician coverage, we could end up closing early due to capacity. So we have approximately 9 stretchers in our emergency department. And when we reach about 70%, so 6 out of 9 of those stretchers are full, it does trigger us to look at reassess what's in the waiting room and what's in our facility. And when I say the stretchers are full, that's full with patients that are staying. So we could be in a minute and there's no inpatient bed for them to go to, or their observation, and we'll be there for 12 or 24 hours waiting on results or other things. So those stretchers are now occupied. And then when we do fill up those 2 or 3 of those final stretchers, we do have to close the department due to patient safety and ensuring that we can get the patients get the care they need. So we will close the emergency department at that time. Now it's all now posted through our Nova Scotia Health temporary closure webpage, our hospital external signage, and as well our switchboard will be aware so people can call our switchboard. We are looking at other avenues too that came up during the Port Hawkesbury meeting in connecting with Strait Area Transit, so seeking that information to them and some other transportation services, so it'd be beneficial for them to be aware early on, so they're not transporting people unnecessarily or causing extra financial burden on your residents. So we are working with to get that information out to those stakeholders as well. So that's kind of our new model of care with the emergency department. Again, not ideal, but it is something that we can put in place to ensure that we are getting the right care for patients when we are open, and when we are closed, get that information out so people can seek care at other hospitals nearby. And then our inpatient unit, as you may be aware, it used to be upwards of 20 inpatients, 15 medicine, and 5 rehab. We're now down to 10 inpatient beds with the capacity of having 2 or 3 more palliative care beds as needed. And the 10 medicine beds that we do have are being utilized for mentally stable patients waiting for discharge, either home or to a nursing home, or waiting for home care to be home so they can go home, those types of things. That's what we do due to the vacancies on the first slide. You were seeing that we had 11.5 RN vacancies, so we did have to change the model of care. As Brett mentioned earlier, so without RNs, we had to change our model of care, utilizing more LPNs and bringing in CCAs, other care providers such as ESAs and pharmacists to be able to support with medication reviews and other tasks that the RNs were doing. And I do want to point out that the 11, well, all the vacancies, but the 11.5 vacancies of RNs at the facility, the majority of those, I do believe 8 of those, are in the medical unit, and 3 of those are in the ER. But they're not all permanent vacancies. Some of these are maternity leaves and leaves of absences, etc. Nothing the details what they're all off for, but not all of them are permanent vacancies. So people will be coming back to the facility when the maternity leave is up, etc. But that could be 12 or 18 months. So we had to put something in place to mitigate and be able to still provide care for the community as a whole. So that's sort of the inpatient model, and then the emerge. And as I mentioned, we do a posting up for a full-time educator, nurse care support resource person that will help in both areas of the facility and work with the nurses. So that's a great addition to this facility now and in the future, is to help with recruitment and retention moving forward. I think that kind of covers the model that we're working with now. And so some next steps is ongoing evaluation of this model. So this model, like I said, it's temporary, and we hope it's not long term, but it's here now. It's what we have to work with. So we're trying to continue to evaluate it, tweak it, listen to the staff. We're getting great feedback and doing some changes here and there based on staff feedback, engagement with Port Hawkesbury Council. We've got some things too. So it's an ongoing being changed and tweaked. Targeted hires for international RNs is ongoing with our recruitment retention committees. We engage with the foundation. We engage with the friends of our recruitment team and our own internal Nova Scotia Health recruitment. As Brett had mentioned, ongoing incentives and return of service. We did do similar in Guysborough a few years ago when we had the same situation, and Cancel, where we had short nurses. We were able to offer $5,000 a year, up to $15,000. So we did offer $10,000 for 2 years return of service, and the municipality of Guysborough came forward and matched that. So we were able to offer $20,000 to the registered nurses to come, and we were able to obtain 5 registered nurses between Cancel and Guysborough on a 2-year return of service in conjunction with the Guysborough municipality. And after the 2 years, we have so far retained 3 of those nurses. So it was a pretty good, well worth collaboration and investment for that area. So there is positives that we can look at, as a group and moving together. So that's great. Travel nurses, we have I think 3 different companies we're working with right now. under contract with MSH, so seeing if we can get some nurses. We also have a rural locum position within our zone, so nurses that can come in and work at different rural sites for their zones. So we're trying to attract some nurses to that, and exploring additional models of care to support the community. Bringing in, we're still working now with virtual care, virtual emergency opportunities. So we're in the early stages of working with Dr. Dan Summers and Virtual Care Nova Scotia. We're looking at providing some sort of virtual coverage when the Strait-Richmond Hospital is closed, where it could be you could potentially see patients on an appointment-based model. Virtually, the physician will be virtual, but the nursing staff will be within the department. So we're just working through those details now. We're hoping to be able to launch that in the coming weeks or months at Strait as a trial. So that's exciting. Just another avenue for the residents to seek and receive care that they need within their own community.
Once these officials from the eastern zone of the Nova Scotia Health Authority finished their presentation about the Strait-Richmond Hospital and laid out their physician and professional recruitment plans for the future, Richmond Municipal Councillors and Warden Amanda Mombourquette got to have their say about the whole situation. And in doing so, they launched a wide-ranging discussion about healthcare in our region, ranging from everything to availability of physicians and nurses to the effectiveness of the ambulance system currently serving Richmond County and the surrounding areas. We begin this portion of our coverage with the voice of Richmond Warden Amanda Mombourquette.
Obviously, concerning times at the Strait-Richmond Hospital. I'm not going to say any of that is good news, but it is the reality we're facing. I just would like to start out with a quick question and a comment first. Really happy to see your goal stated on multiple slides that the plan is to return to 24/7 care. I mean, as you can imagine, the concern in the community is this a path to closure for our hospital? And I'm glad to see that that's not that's not where this is headed, and you've clearly stated that. I'm imagining though it does have impacts on the other, like the network of hospitals. The regionals is what I'm thinking of. If we didn't have the Strait-Richmond, I think those other hospitals would be in a bit more of a mess, But I guess my question is your model, is one of the purposes to achieve sort of, not the full purpose, but one of the purposes to kind of achieve a little bit more balance for physicians and nurses and staff that are there. Like, we're hearing about burnout, we're hearing about employee morale. Like, is that part of the consideration going on here?
You're correct. The facility and the services that are at the facility, there's a reason why we said we want it to be 24/7, and we made specific statements to that, because you're right, the other facilities could not most likely manage the flow if that facility wasn't in existence. So that's why we wanted to make sure the community was crystal clear that that's our goal. By way of your comments in relation to why we're changing the model, certainly it's provider driven, that one part or one aspect of it. So if you're having a 20-bed full medicine services inpatient unit, you really need to have a balance of registered nurses, licensed fractional nurses, and continuing care assistants, but more registered nurses and LPNs, and therefore where we have that amount of vacancies, we do want to try and balance the patient population. So trying to look at long-term care or palliative patients. We know what their outcome is. They're I guess more predictable by way of not being acutely ill, and therefore we felt that we had to make a shift in by way of the model. So we're trying to achieve a few things there, but yes, balancing the workload with the acuity is probably the primary goal, just so we can actually have that work-life balance and not really strain the remaining providers that are there to any great degree to what they've already been strained by way of workload. So that's really our intention.
Morale is huge on our radar with all our facilities. And, some of the things we put in place at Strait-Richmond, helps with the model, but it also helps with morale with our cross training and implementing different levels of care that weren't there before. So trying to, put those things in place to support the staff that are there, and I'll say spread out the workload appropriately with all service providers that can help each other and cross over and be there to support each other and integrate, provide more integration and communication across the facility to help us increase morale at the facility.
Alluding to what the warden said and what you guys just answered when it comes to the morale and the workload, looking at these percentages of nurses, you're almost at half, right? You got 11 vacancies out of 22. Your medical lab techs, you got 2 vacancies out of 5. So I guess my question would be, you guys' goal is to return to 24/7 emergency department, and that's encouraging for all of us here around this table. I guess my question to you would be, what would be your minimum requirements? Where would you like to see those numbers? Again, finding a balance here or whatever, but where would you like to see? What do you think is going to be your minimum requirements and needs to get this back to a 24/7 situation?
Well, I think, we want to ensure that we're talking with the staff so that, we're not saying we just need 2 more and then that's not realistic for them by way of trying to balance the workload. So that's where the sort of ongoing conversations with staff comes in. As you can imagine, in many of our inpatient units right across the zone, we had vacancies, and the larger the inpatient unit, the more robust the staff, and the better the ability to sort of withstand some vacancies. But where you have a smaller group of staff, there is a number there. I would suggest, and again, you have to check with staff, that you want to have at least 70 to 80% of your staff back up, so that some staff can pick up some overtime to make up the difference. But again, I think those conversations need to be once we get closer to that number, working with the staff and depending on the experience of the staff as well. So I think there's a number of factors taken into consideration there before we land on a specific number. So I'd say it was a bit of range, more than just an absolute number.
You mentioned EHS being partners of yours and being a big part of this situation. Would you have? We hear many a times that there's a shortage of paramedics and an issue with EHS. Would you have that information available of what that vacancy rate would be compared to the amount of members there is now in place?
I don't have those numbers off the top of my head. I do know that they are significantly challenged. There's several trucks off, like this eastern zone, any given day, and it depends on the region. There may be trucks off in English Guysborough, and there may be some off in the greater CDRM area, and some off in sort of Cape Breton West. So I think that's really a moving target. It depends on the day, but they are struggling with resources the same as we are for both Scotia Health and long-term care, and it's going to take some time for them to get their workforce more stabilized. I will say that they have looked to implement different models by way of EHS. So in the past, it would be every EHS vehicle has 2 paramedics, and so they've gone with some multi-person transport units where they can transport more than one patient at a time. Again, there's a specific patient population where that's more fitting. And they've also gone to single provider patient transport, where it would be a patient who has mobility is in their favor, and they don't require any great amount of assist by way of second or third individual to help them. So again, that one varies as well, but I guess if you're looking for a specific number, how many trucks are we down or how many staff are down in any one given day or area, that would be a bit challenging to pin down. But I think for your understanding of the community, they are quite challenged, the same as we are by way of staff.
As we implement sort of paramedics into sort of other roles within the health system, you know, is that going to impact ambulance response times? You know, specifically, I know there was an example in my community on Thursday evening. An elderly gentleman waited over 4 hours for an ambulance to come to his house, you know, to deal with the situation of a broken bone. And I guess I'm wondering, like, do you know, when you're in conversations with EHS, this like, that doesn't seem to me to be a long-term solution to have paramedics doing these other types of work, you know?
I think it's a solution. It's not the solution. I think there's going to take a number of these initiatives or solutions collectively to try and, you know, bridge from now until when they can build the workforce back up. The same as the, you know, the struggle that we're having as Nova Scotia Health trying to get our licensed provider workforce back up. So, you know, to the point of, you know, we have ACP paramedics sometimes working at the site. Anytime that we've gone and looked at that as a potential, we've worked with DHS and leadership and said, this is something we're contemplating. Is that something that is viable for your team? And in some communities across the province, you would see that they have, there may be a full-time paramedic posting. And the feedback that we had heard from EHS, certainly in this sort of current environment, was, you know, you can offer some casual shifts, but, you know, please don't post too many permanent positions as they're trying to struggle. That could be something that we can work towards together when their workforce increases, and then we can provide their EHS providers with different opportunities. But right now, we're just trying to balance out the scarce resources we have collectively together.
We would want to know that you guys are taking care to make sure that ambulance response times are not going to increase drastically because of, you know, of this new temporary model of care. So I think if we have your assurance on that, that's really helpful.
Quote me if I'm wrong, but I believe you said that when there's 3 emergencies or 3 of the beds are full in the emergency room at the Strait-Richmond, then they close the emergency. Is that correct? When the 3 beds are, I guess, full at the Strait-Richmond through the emergency, is then the ER closed?
Yes. So if, let's say, the 9 beds, let's say it's this evening and the ED was open, and they ended up having, you know, 6 admissions and 3 patients who will be required to be detained for further examination because of their presentation. If their beds are all full, then they can't receive any new patients. So that's when we would look. They would call their administrator on call, and then there would be a discussion that would be had. Do we foresee any of those patients going home to free up extra beds and work with the team locally? Again, you know, the 60-70% is that's a trigger to have a conversation. That doesn't mean that it's automatic. So you have to understand, are there people waiting in the waiting room? What are their triage levels? Are they presenting in their acute? So there's a number of factors to take into consideration, but certainly if the beds are full and the physician and the team are actively trying to care and treat those acute patients, then that creates an access problem by way of there's nowhere just to put anybody, and therefore that would activate the protocol. And when the protocol is activated, then it's reassessed for reevaluation time. So let's say it happens at 12 midnight, then we would want to reevaluate in 6 or 8 hours to see if maybe 3 of those patients could have gone home, and then the ED could open back up again to see patients. So it's a bit of a balancing act, and it's new for this team, and it's new for the community. And as Andrew mentioned, there's an evaluation process, like how is it working? Are the triggers working? Is it working for the team? Is there anything we can tweak? That's really what we're trying to, you know, we're trying to do as much as we can with the resources that we have, and provide as much service to the community that we can.
Back 10 years ago, I would say, when EHS was provincially operated, just here in the, I guess, Airshed area, we had, you know, 3 ambulances. Port Hawkesbury had 3, St. Peter's had 2 or 3. Now that it's, I'm going to say, privatized, but yet still ran through the province, we seem to have a lot less, I guess, service. Is that something that you look at the province to make an increase in, to say, you know, the numbers that they're providing are not adequate and we require more? Or is that something that is just between the province and the privatized EHS company?
Yeah, that's a good question. So EHS, to your point, is a company, and they are contracted out by the Department of Health, and they have a decision support and analytics team that works with them. And so if there was a question raised for a particular community or site, they would do an evaluation of, how many calls do they get on average, what's the response time, and they use those metrics to do an evaluation if there's a question on whether they have, the sufficient resources to meet the demands in the community. I think there's a zoning shifting zoning plan is what they use. So if there's a truck in Antigonish and something happens further out towards, say, St. Peter's, and they have to sometimes shift their vehicles to create that coverage pattern. I know that happens within the Eastern Zone, whether it's rural communities or CBR around. If there's a call in Inverness, say in Marguerite, then the truck in Inverness may go to Marguerite, and the Shetty Cam truck may come over closer to Inverness. So they do a zoning coverage. But if there's a specific question around resources, we could take that back, and if it was a specific community or something of that nature. But that's really, that falls with EHS specifically as a question into them. We partner with them, we have conversations with them and collaborate on a day-to-day basis. But if it's around increasing the vehicle presence, that would be a separate.
Just kind of wrapping things up, I did hear you mention housing, so definitely would be interested to know about, if NSH is interested in partnering on housing opportunities, but I'm not expecting you to answer that question now. I think I guess good for you to know it's on our radar too. But very practically, when the closures are happening, where do people find that information? So, there's a lot of our population that is, a little older or live in areas with limited access to broadband. So is it being advertised more than online? Where do people go to get that info?
That's a great question. It is online. I don't know because of health temporary closure, but again, with as we get more rural and the access to, like I said, broadband decreases, so it is online. It is at our hospital. You can also call the switchboard anytime at the hospital. They're there on the clock. And somebody will be able to tell people whether it's open or closed. And we're just working on other avenues to get that out. We sometimes use, radio, etc. But sometimes this happens at 2 a.m. Or midnight. So we're just working through that now, how to best get this information out to this population. So if you have any other suggestions, like I said, Port Hawkesbury, Council did suggest, communication with Strait Area Transit and other local driving companies. So if you have any other suggestions, we're definitely open to understanding how to best get this to your constituents and your communities. So,
well, count us in as a partner on communications there. We'll do whatever we can, to help spread that message, because we definitely want people going to the right place at the right time, so.
Yeah, just a point to make on that last question. I was the administrator on call last week, and we did have to activate the protocol. I would say if it's through the middle of the night, a phone call into the facility might work the best. You can understand how challenging it is to try and message at 1 a.m.
Absolutely.
And whether or not someone would actually even see a message at 1 a.m. And it takes time for us to make our calls and connections and load all that up. So there's even a delay in that regard. So
yeah, for sure. Maybe there's something we could put on our website.
For the amount of volume that happens at nighttime in most rural settings, a call may be the best way, after midnight, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Maybe we could put something on our website, here's how to find out the status of the emergency at Strait-Richmond, and call the number, look on this site, whatever, you know what I mean? Just so people because people are familiar with our county webpage, and maybe we could just, even have some, social media and stuff. Yeah, exactly. So, okay. Well, thank you very much, folks. We'll work on that, and we really appreciate your time this evening. I think it was extremely valuable because I know there's been lots of questions in the community about, what does this mean for our hospital long term. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate the invite, and hopefully we can come back soon and maybe have some better news, and certainly open to any questions or any suggestions going forward. I know in the last meeting we had, there's I think suggestions around some international nurses who had to go away and receive education out of the province, but just a reminder, if those things are happening, we do have those incentive funds to bring people back, so if they already have a community connection, maybe it's an easy way for them to recruit somebody back.
So, now that you've seen the presentation from the Nova Scotia Health Authority's Eastern Zone officials regarding the Strait-Richmond, here is how Richmond Warden Amanda Mombourquette summarized the situation immediately following the June 27th Council meeting in Arishat. Nova Scotia Health Authority making the presentation on the new ER model at the Strait-Richmond. Your gut reaction to what they had to say?
Yeah, I mean, my gut reaction continues to be one of great concern. I'm hearing from constituents that they're worried about the future of our hospital, and I'm worried about the future of it as well. There's a lot of vacancies. It's become pretty extreme, and I guess it was great to see that on multiple in multiple places in their presentation they said our goal is clearly to get back to 24/7 care, because of course we worry that this is the next step to closure, right? So it's really great to see them reassure the community and reassure us of that. That being said, there's a road ahead, and everybody's been working really hard on recruitment efforts. I'm kind of the mindset that when you keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, there's a definition around that. But we need to look at doing things differently. And I think the way that NSH approaches this, and the way that Cape Breton South, Recruiting for Health approaches this, the way the councils approach it, we have to find a new way, a better way to work together to make sure that we're creating collaborative spaces that are inviting to people to want to work in. And part of that is the housing piece, part of it is the community connections piece. There's so many facets to this, and we continue to work really hard to find those new and innovative models. It's going to take some time, and so I guess I would really encourage people to, if you're worried, if you need to go to the hospital, give a call to the switchboard first. It's 625-3100, I believe is the number, and they will be able to tell you whether the emerge is open or not.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about the enormity of the task? And I mean, it's one thing to say that you got assurances that they want to go back to 24/7 ER coverage. The Strait-Richmond didn't have 24/7 ER coverage before this new model came in. So can you talk a little bit about that and just the idea of the patience that's going to be needed and the diligence that's going to be needed to be able to fill these gaps?
Yeah, it's an enormous task, but like I said, I think if we look at different ways of achieving the goals, we can do it. What I'm really concerned about, though, is that we don't sacrifice other services in order to, in order to achieve that goal any quicker. Specifically, I worry about the response times with ambulance. I'm hearing from constituents that they're waiting hours, 4 hours or more, for ambulances to arrive in situations that are emergency, and it's completely unacceptable. So we can't be robbing Peter to pay Paul here. I think it's, like I said, this is going to have to be an all hands on deck. It has been an all hands on deck, but I think now that we see what this new temporary model of care is looking like, it's going to accelerate efforts, because we certainly can't have no hospital where the Strait-Richmond is now, because simply, and we heard it this evening, our regional hospitals will not be able to support the demand. So
I want to springboard from that into the recent announcement by the Minister of Health, Michelle Thompson, about Nova Scotia apparently having a record year for physician recruitment. Yeah. 163 brought in, loss of 68 for a net gain of 95. Obviously, that breaks down differently in different regions. Did these numbers encourage you at all? They come about a week and a half into this new ER model for the Strait. What did you think of that announcement?
Yeah, no, I mean, they're really encouraging numbers. They really, really are. But, when you look at patient loads for highly experienced physicians at the end of their careers compared to the expected patient load of an incoming physician, especially if they're newer to the field, there's no comparison. So even though we have more doctors coming in than probably ever before, the patient load is still suffering because we're having more and more retirements of folks who have had really, really high patient loads. And so it's a bit of math that's really difficult to grapple with. I think we're moving in the right direction in terms of numbers of physicians. It's absolutely where we need to be going. I would apply that statement to other professions. We need to be looking at increasing RNs, all kinds of different healthcare professionals. But it's a step in the right direction. Unfortunately, it's not the silver bullet that we all wish it was.
However, it wasn't just the Strait-Richmond Hospital that captured Council's attention at the June 27th regular meeting. Councillors also took a look at a letter from Isle Madame native Callie Kehoe regarding her concerns about littering and illegal dumping around Isle Madame and throughout Richmond County. Here's how Richmond Warden Amanda Mombourquette responded to Kehoe's concerns following the regular council meeting. Richmond is not in a position to take direct action on this, not having an enforcement officer, but that being said, do you get the feeling that there are strategies, or at least the beginnings of strategies going forward from the discussion tonight to be able to deal with this issue?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, we're a municipality of limited resources and many priorities, and so I think probably the best way for us to handle this is to look at kind of leveraging the things that we do have in place. And so we normally do hire students in the summer, so one of the things we're going to do is we're going to refer that to our budget deliberations to potentially hire some students that could either do some cleanup, but who knows, maybe they could also do some education campaign work, so we'll refer that to our budget deliberations for next fiscal year. We don't have budgetary room for it this year. I do think it's a great idea, and Council has decided to write to the province of Nova Scotia and urge them to put garbage cans back in provincial parks. I really agree with the pack-in, pack-out philosophy. It's kind of close to my heart, but at the end of the day, there's sometimes just a need for a garbage can, especially if you consider that some people are spending the full day at some of these parks, right? And I think additionally finding out from our local RCMP about over the last 5 years, what has been the enforcement around littering to get us, to give us a better understanding. We heard from Councillor Sampson from Police Advisory Committee today that it is a very difficult thing to enforce because it has to be reported. You may have to show as a witness, unless the RCMP catch somebody doing it in the act themselves, littering. It can be really difficult to enforce. So I think for me and I think for the rest of Council, we'd like to get a better understanding of what that's looked like over the last number of years. So it's a start, and hopefully we'll be able to get some traction on this kind of going forward, because we're all committed to having a cleaner community.
Warden Mombourquette, from the perspective of being the warden of Richmond County, but also simply being a resident of Richmond County, are you surprised that we're still seeing littering as a problem in the year 2022?
Yeah, I can't believe this is still an issue in 2022, and it's disappointing. There's no end to the amount of education that all levels of government have provided on. Garbage doesn't just go away. It has to be dealt with properly, because if not, it just pollutes our communities, it pollutes our watersheds, and I would urge people, I guess, to consider what you're doing before you throw something out the window of your car, and not just about whose property you might be damaging, but the environment that you might be damaging for future generations. And I think probably some of our First Nations communities would tell us best. You think in 7 generations and what you're going to be. What's the planet going to look like that you're leaving for your future, and so it's just it is really disappointing to see right now. So hopefully we can help turn it around.
All right, one last quick one on this topic. One of the councillors brought up that there has been reports of illegal dumping happening in different parts of Richmond County. Like most Strait area municipalities, this has been an ongoing problem for years. Your thoughts on the idea that this form of littering is still happening around here? Yeah,
it's really unfortunate. I know I have friends who have found illegal dump sites on their properties. There's no question, and sadly, it becomes in most cases the property owner's responsibility to clean it up once the Department of Nova Scotia Environment would take action. So it is their purview to take action on illegal dump sites. things like that. But at the end of the day, it's usually the property owner who gets left holding the bag, and so it's just completely unfair for people who are, property owners and really committed to having clean communities and maintaining their own properties. So, it's just hard to be still seeing that in this day and age, for sure.
Richmond County's role in managing the affairs of the Alan J. McCacken Regional Airport in Inverness County also came up at the June 27th regular council meeting. Warden Amanda Mombourquette is trying to get some conversation happening on the terms of reference for the Airport Management Committee. To that end, she has won over the support of her fellow councillors to invite 2 representatives from Port Hawkesbury's municipal staff, CAO Terry Doyle and Director of Finance Aaron McCacken, to speak with Richmond councillors and officials later on this coming fall. Here's how Richmond Warden Amanda Mombourquette summed up the situation when I spoke to her about it following last week's council meeting in Arishat. Council has agreed to ask Terry Doyle, the CAO in Port Hawkesbury, and the Director of Finance, Aaron McCacken, to come to Richmond Council to talk a bit about the terms of reference for the Airport Management Committee. Why do you feel this is coming up now, and what do you think is prompting it?
Yeah, so I think it's actually just really good timing. So the Airport Management Committee met very recently, and there definitely was discussion about the terms of reference. And so, we need to realize that industry is starting to heat up here in terms of prospective interest. I'm hearing from some of the potential investors that, they see the airport as a critical piece of the infrastructure here. We know that it's already a critical piece of the tourism infrastructure in Inverness County. So we just felt that right now would be a good time to review those terms of reference so that council fully understands its obligations under the terms of reference that were agreed upon, but also, can have an opportunity to ask questions about what does that mean for our council, and how we might be able to support the airport going forward, right? So it's really just an exercise in becoming more familiar, and having an opportunity to ask questions about, maybe why certain things are in the terms of reference, because we may not necessarily have the history on it. So just to give us a little bit of extra context, because we see this asset as kind of growing in importance in the region.
For the benefit of our viewers, and I mean, not everybody understands the importance of an airport just outside of Port Hastings to Richmond County in particular. Do you see this as Warden as an overall piece of the Strait area's economic puzzle? Do you feel it has direct benefit to Richmond County in terms of heavy industry? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you're hitting the nail on the head. The Alan J. McCacken Airport is a regional airport, and it supports a regional transportation hub. One of the things that sets this region apart are the high quality of our rail, highway, air, and sea infrastructure. We have transportation corridors, 4 different types. So it's quite an accomplishment for a community of our size, especially considering that we're sitting on one of the deepest ice-free harbors in North America. So it's an asset that we see as very important, specifically to development in Point Tupper, but also I would say to our overall tourism economy, especially as we're trying to put one of our priorities that I'm starting to hear that was likely to emerge from our strat plan is to put more emphasis on tourism. So we need it on many fronts as well. Not to mention that there could be opportunities around training and other innovative types of activities that go on there.
And now, joining us once again on Telile 24/7 to play our infamous Fast 5 game is the CAO for Inverness County, Keith MacDonald. Are you all ready for the Fast 5, sir?
I don't know if I'll ever be ready, but I'll try.
That's a great answer. We'll make it the Fast 6, and we'll start with that answer. Okay. First question, very basic. Question number 1, Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Okay, there we are. Took a while to get there, but you eventually got to the right answer. Good, good. You can go anywhere in the world. What is your dream vacation?
I think I'd like to check out Iceland next.
Iceland, do you say?
Yeah.
All right. So we're sending Keith MacDonald to Reykjavik. Let's get the ticket right now. All right. You can be any animal for a day. What is that animal?
Oh gosh. That's a tough one. Let's go with horse because they're not usually hunted. So.
Oh my goodness. There we go. That's a great answer. I like it. Question number 4. I have seen this movie 10 times. I would gladly watch it another 20. What is that movie?
Shawshank Redemption.
Oh my goodness. We've gotten Shawshank Redemption once or twice on this segment, and no surprise either. It is a great one, And last question to you, Keith MacDonald, for the Fast Five. Does ketchup go on hot dogs?
Sure does.
And again, you started with the right answer and you finished with the right answer. That's great. There we are. Congratulations. You are now known. You have completed the Fast Five. Thanks so much, Keith.
All right.
Keith MacDonald is the CAO for Inverness County. He is the latest volunteer for the Telile 24/7 Fast Five. And there you have it, folks. That wraps up this week's edition of Telile 24/7. Thank you for tuning in, and a big thank you to my interview guests this week, Amanda Mombourquette and Keith MacDonald. Special thanks to my colleagues at Telile Community Television, Nick Boudreau, Cody, Pardy, and Becky Bourinot, for filming and formatting the footage from the June 27th regular meeting of Richmond Municipal Council. And if you'd like to see that meeting online, it's still available on Telile's YouTube channel, along with every single episode of Telile 24/7, including this one, and all of our sister programs. Be sure to follow Telile Community Television on our social media networks, and if you have any comments or thoughts about what you've seen over the past hour, or just some suggestions for future editions of Telile 24/7, you can contact me directly, or you can connect with Telile Community Television in Ayrshire. For now, I'm Adam Cook. Thank you once again for tuning in to Telile 24/7. I look forward to seeing you again next time with a brand new show. Bye for now.